On my birthday, my sister texted, "Don't wait up, everyone's at my promotion party instead." 10 minutes later, Dad messaged, "By the way, I put the $3,800 dinner on your card. Hope that's fine." I just replied, "Noted." That night, I blew out the candles alone in a room meant for 60. At 2:47 a.m., I dropped a link in the family chat with one line, "Watch this before sunrise. I'm Erica, and I need to tell you about the birthday that changed everything. Not because it was particularly special, but because it was the day I finally stopped being the family doormat. Let me paint you a picture of my family dynamic. There's my older sister, Madison, the golden child who could do no wrong. She's 33, works in marketing for some tech startup, and has been the center of attention since the day she was born. Then there's me, Erica, 3 years younger, a freelance graphic designer who apparently exists solely to make everyone else's life easier. My parents, Robert and Linda, have always had this weird thing where they bend over backward for Madison while treating me like their personal assistant. Need someone to house sit? Call Erica. Need someone to drive Grandma to her doctor's appointments? Erica's free. Need someone to cover the family dinner bill because Madison forgot her wallet again? Well, you get the picture. This pattern had been going on for years, but I kept telling myself it was just family helping family. I was the reliable one, the one who never complained, the one who always said yes. Looking back, I realize I was just the family's favorite chump. The setup for my 30th birthday started 2 months earlier. I'd been planning this dinner party for weeks, excited to finally celebrate a milestone birthday with the people I loved most. I booked a private dining room at Rosewood Manor, this upscale restaurant downtown that I've been saving up for. The room could accommodate 60 people, and I'd invited everyone, family, close friends, colleagues, even some distant relatives I hadn't seen in years. I'd sent out beautiful invitations, designed them myself, naturally planned the menu, coordinated with a restaurant staff, and even arranged for a small string quartet to play during dinner. This wasn't just any birthday party. This was supposed to be the celebration of my life. Madison knew about the party, of course. She'd even offered to help with the planning, though helping Madison speak usually meant telling me what I was doing wrong and then disappearing when actual work needed to be done. But she seemed genuinely excited about it, talking about how it would be such a special night and how proud she was of me for putting together something so elegant. 3 weeks before the party, Madison landed a promotion at work. Senior marketing director or something equally impressive sounding. She was over the moon, calling me immediately to share the news. "Erica, you're not going to believe this," she gushed over the phone. "I got the promotion. Can you believe it? They're giving me the corner office and everything. I was genuinely happy for her. Despite everything, Madison is my sister, and I wanted good things for her." "That's amazing, Mads. I'm so proud of you. We'll have to celebrate at my birthday dinner. It'll be perfect timing." "Oh, about that," she said. "And I should have heard the warning bells right then. I was thinking maybe I should throw my own celebration party. You know, something more focused on the promotion. But don't worry, I'll make sure it doesn't conflict with your thing. Your thing, not your birthday party or your special celebration. Your thing." I should have said something then, but I didn't. I just smiled and said, "Of course, we could celebrate both occasions. There was room for everyone to be happy, right?" The first red flag came 2 weeks before my birthday. I was at my parents' house for our weekly family dinner when Madison brought up her promotion party again. "I've been thinking," she said, cutting into her steak with theatrical precision, "and I really think Saturday night would be perfect for my celebration." "Saturday night? My birthday?" "But Madison," I said carefully, "that's my birthday party night. We've had this planned for months." "I know, sweetie," she said with that condescending tone she'd perfected over the years. "But think about it logically. My promotion is a career milestone. It's going to affect my whole future. Your birthday happens every year." The silence at the dinner table was deafening. I looked at my parents, waiting for them to speak up, to remind Madison that we'd all committed to my party weeks ago. Instead, my father cleared his throat uncomfortably, and my mother suddenly became very interested in her wine glass. "We could do both," I suggested weakly. "Maybe a lunch celebration for your promotion, and then Erica," Madison interrupted. "Be realistic. People aren't going to want to go to 2 parties in one day. They'll have to choose. And honestly, a career milestone is just more significant than a birthday. More significant than a birthday. More significant than my birthday. Besides, she continued, I've already put deposits down on the venue, the Sunset Ballroom at the Marriott. It's going to be incredible. I'm thinking at least 100 guests. The Sunset Ballroom, the same venue I'd looked at but couldn't afford, the one I dreamed about but settled for Rosewood Manor instead because it fit my budget. I felt something crack inside my chest. But I still didn't fight back. Instead, I did what I always did. I smiled and nodded and said we'd figure something out. Over the next week, I watched my carefully planned guest list evaporate. One by one, people called or texted to apologize. They'd love to come to my birthday, but Madison's promotion party sounded amazing. And since it was the same night, they'd have to choose. Most of them chose Madison. My college roommate, Jessica. I'm so sorry, Erica, but you know how networking opportunities go. My cousin Mike, Madison's party, is going to have an open bar and a DJ. Even my friend Lisa from work. I already RSVP'd to Madison's thing before I got your invitation. By the week of my birthday, my 60-person guest list had shrunk to 15 people. 15. And most of those were plus ones who didn't really know me, but were coming with their partners who felt obligated to attend. I should have canceled the party then, should have admitted defeat and maybe planned a quiet dinner with a few people who had remained loyal. But something stubborn in me refused to give up. I'd put months of work into this celebration, had spent nearly $4,000 on deposits and planning, and I wasn't going to let Madison's selfishness completely destroy it. The morning of my birthday, Saturday, October 14th, I woke up with a knot in my stomach. I'd barely slept, alternating between anger and sadness, and a desperate hope that somehow everything would work out. I spent the day getting ready, doing my hair and makeup, putting on the navy blue dress I'd bought specifically for this occasion. It was beautiful, probably the most expensive dress I'd ever owned. But as I looked at myself in the mirror, all I could think about was how I'd be wearing it to celebrate with a mostly empty room. At 4:03 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Madison. Don't wait up. Everyone's at my promotion party instead. Party popper emoji. Hope you understand. Love you. I stared at that message for a full minute, reading it over and over. The casual cruelty of it hit me like a physical blow. She wasn't even pretending to feel bad about it anymore. She was gloating. 10 minutes later, another text, this one from my father. By the way, I put the $3,800 dinner on your card. Hope that's fine. Madison's party went over budget, and she needed help with catering costs. Thanks, honey. I read that message 3 times before it fully sank in. Not only had Madison stolen my birthday celebration and my guests, but now she'd stolen my money to pay for the privilege. $3,800, nearly $4,000, charged to my credit card without my permission to pay for the party that had ruined mine. I sat on my bed, still in my beautiful navy dress, and felt something fundamental shift inside me. The hurt was still there, sharp and bitter. But underneath it was something else, something colder and more focused. I typed back, noted, just that, nothing else. Because suddenly I had a plan forming in my mind and I needed time to think it through properly. I still went to my birthday dinner that night. The 15 people who showed up were wonderful. My best friend from high school, a few work colleagues who actually cared about me, my great-aunt Dorothy, who'd driven 3 hours to be there. They tried to make the best of it, filling the huge private dining room with as much energy as they could muster. But it was impossible to ignore the empty tables, the unused play settings, the string quartet playing to a mostly empty room. The restaurant staff, who'd been expecting 60 guests, kept asking if more people were coming. I just smiled and said, no, this was everyone. At the end of the night, after the last guest had hugged me goodbye and promised to call soon, I sat alone in that dining room with a single slice of birthday cake. The candles had already been blown out during the dinner service, but there was one last piece sitting in front of me, and I couldn't help but think about how this wasn't how 30 was supposed to start. I got home around midnight, emotionally drained, but wide awake. I sat in my living room, still in my party dress, and started doing what I do best, research. See, here's what my family never understood about me. Yes, I'm the quiet one, the reliable one, the one who never makes a fuss. But I'm also a graphic designer with a computer science minor who's very, very good at finding information online. And when you've been hurt as deeply as I had been, you become very motivated to use those skills. I started with social media. Madison had been posting about her promotion party all week, and tonight was no different. Her Instagram was full of photos from the Sunset Ballroom, beautiful shots of her in a stunning red dress, surrounded by all the people who were supposed to be at my birthday dinner. But it was her LinkedIn that really caught my attention. Madison had been posting constantly about her new promotion, sharing insights about leadership and company culture, positioning herself as this up-and-coming executive. She'd even written a long post about integrity in business and the importance of building trust with colleagues. I screenshotted everything. Then I dug deeper. Madison worked for TechFlow Solutions, a mid-sized company that prided itself on progressive values and ethical business practices. I'd helped her prepare for her interview there 3 years ago, so I knew quite a bit about their company culture. They were the type of place that cared deeply about their public image and their employees' conduct, especially their leadership team. I spent the next hour researching TechFlow's social media policies, their company handbook, surprisingly easy to find online, and their recent press releases. They just launched a big initiative about workplace integrity and family values. Perfect. But I needed more than just social media posts to make this work. I needed evidence, documentation, a clear pattern of behavior that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. That's when I remembered something Madison had told me months ago, something she bragged about during one of our family dinners. She'd been struggling to meet a big quarterly goal, and she found a creative way to boost her numbers. She'd convinced several small business owners to sign contracts for services they didn't really need, promising them deals that she knew the company couldn't actually honor. At the time, she'd laughed about it. "They too small to really complain effectively," she'd said. "And by the time they figure out what happened, I'll have made my numbers and moved on." I'd been uncomfortable with the story then, but I'd brushed it off as Madison exaggerating or maybe misrepresenting what had actually happened. Now, though, I saw it differently. Now, I saw it as fraud. I spent another hour tracking down the businesses she'd mentioned, cross-referencing them with TechFlow's client list, amazingly easy to find with the right search terms, and building a timeline of when these deals had been signed versus when Madison's promotion had been announced. The pattern was clear. Madison had been systematically misleading small business clients for months, pumping up her sales numbers with contracts she knew were problematic, all to position herself for this promotion. What made it even worse was discovering the specific details of how she'd manipulated these small business owners. There was Maria Santos, who ran a family bakery in Southeast Portland. Madison had convinced her to sign up for a premium digital marketing package that cost $2,400 per month, promising guaranteed foot traffic increases of at least 40% within 60 days. The contract was loaded with technical jargon that Maria clearly hadn't understood, and buried in the fine print were clauses that made the traffic guarantees essentially meaningless. Then there was David Chen, who owned a small accounting firm. Madison had sold him on an enterprise-level client management system for $1,800 monthly, claiming it would revolutionize his business operations. What she hadn't mentioned was that the system was designed for companies with at least 50 employees, making it completely unsuitable for David's 3-person operation. When he called to complain about the system's complexity, Madison had told him he just needed to invest in proper staff training, meaning more money out of his pocket. The worst case was probably Jennifer Martinez, a single mother who'd started a small house cleaning service. Madison had convinced her to sign a 2-year contract for social media management and lead generation services totaling over $36,000. Jennifer had scraped together the down payment using her daughter's college savings, trusting Madison's promise that the investment would pay for itself within 3 months through increased bookings. When I looked up these businesses online, I could see the real impact of Madison's deception. Maria's Bakery was struggling with online reviews complaining about poor digital marketing and unfulfilled promises. David's accounting firm had switched to a different, much simpler system within 6 months, essentially eating the cost of Madison's expensive solution. Jennifer's cleaning service had nearly gone under trying to make the payments on a marketing package that had generated almost no new business. These weren't just numbers in a sales report. These were real people whose livelihoods Madison had damaged in pursuit of her promotion. She targeted small business owners specifically because they were less likely to have legal resources to fight back, less likely to understand complex contracts, and more likely to blame themselves when the promised results didn't materialize. I found myself getting angrier as I dug deeper into each case. The birthday party betrayal had been personal, painful, and humiliating. But this was something else entirely. This was Madison systematically preying on vulnerable people who had trusted her professional expertise. There was something particularly cruel about the way she'd selected her targets. All of them were first-generation business owners, people who were already struggling to navigate the complexities of running a company without someone actively working to deceive them. Maria had immigrated from El Salvador 15 years ago and had built her bakery from nothing. David had started his accounting firm after being laid off from a corporate job in his 50s. Jennifer was trying to build financial security for herself and her daughter after a difficult divorce. Madison knew exactly what she was doing when she targeted these clients. She knew they were more likely to trust her promises, more likely to sign contracts they didn't fully understand, and less likely to have the resources to hold her accountable when things went wrong. As I compiled this information, I realized I wasn't just documenting Madison's betrayal of our family relationship. I was uncovering a pattern of behavior that spoke to something much deeper, a fundamental lack of empathy and integrity that affected every area of her life. This wasn't just about sibling rivalry or family trauma. This was about character. But I still needed proof. Screenshots and timelines are one thing, but I needed something more concrete. That's when I remembered Madison's laptop. See, Madison had been house-sitting for our parents the previous month while they were on their anniversary cruise. She'd asked to borrow my home printer because hers was broken, and she'd spent several evenings at my apartment working on some big presentation for work. I'd noticed her saving files to a shared folder on my computer, just temporary storage while she worked on the project. I'd forgotten about those files completely until now. I opened my laptop and navigated to the shared folder. There they were. Dozens of Madison's work files, including email screenshots, client communications, and internal company documents that she'd been using for her presentation. I should probably mention that Madison isn't exactly tech-savvy. She's brilliant at marketing and sales, but she treats computers like mysterious black boxes that somehow produce the results she wants. The idea that those files were still sitting on my computer, accessible to me, would never have occurred to her. But I'm not Madison. I understand exactly how digital storage works, and I understand that these files were now legally in my possession since she'd placed them on my computer. I spent the next 2 hours going through everything. Email threads where Madison discussed strategies for managing client expectations downward after contracts were signed. Internal communications where she joked with colleagues about creative revenue recognition. Draft presentations where she outlined tactics for targeting unsophisticated clients who were less likely to understand the technical details of their contracts. It was all there, a complete picture of systematic fraud spanning 6 months, culminating in the promotion she'd celebrated tonight at the expense of my birthday. I compiled everything into a comprehensive folder: screenshots, documents, timeline, business impact analysis, and a detailed summary of how Madison's actions had potentially exposed TechFlow to legal liability from the clients she'd misled. But I didn't just want to hurt Madison's career. I wanted to hurt her the same way she'd hurt me, publicly, personally, in front of all the people whose opinions she valued most. So, I created a video. I'm a graphic designer, remember? I know my way around video editing software, and I've been experimenting with motion graphics as a way to expand my skill set. I'd never used those skills for something like this, but desperation is a powerful motivator. The video was 12 minutes long. It started with a simple title card, "The True Cost of Success," a case study in family values. Then it launched into the story. Not just Madison's professional misconduct, but the whole pattern of behavior that had led to my ruined birthday. I included screenshots of her text from that night, photos from her Instagram showing all my former guests at her party, bank records showing the unauthorized charge to my credit card. I wove it all together into a narrative about entitlement, manipulation, and the way some people will sacrifice anyone, even their own family, to get what they want. But here's the thing. I didn't make it personal. I didn't call Madison names or attack her character directly. I just presented the facts, laid out the timeline, and let the evidence speak for itself. The tone was calm, professional, almost documentary style, which somehow made it even more devastating. I ended with a simple message. Actions have consequences. Sometimes those consequences just take a while to arrive. By 2:30 a.m., the video was finished. I'd uploaded it to a private YouTube account and created a simple web page that embedded the video along with all the supporting documentation. I'd even included a contact form for anyone who wanted to verify the information I'd presented. At 2:47 a.m. exactly, I opened our family group chat, the same chat where Madison had gloated about her party success earlier that evening, and dropped a link. My message was simple: watch this before sunrise. Then I turned off my phone, poured myself a glass of wine, and went to bed. I slept better that night than I had in weeks. I woke up around 9:00 a.m. to my phone buzzing like an angry bee. 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, and 12 voicemails. I made coffee before I looked at any of them. The first few messages were from Madison, starting around 4:00 a.m. Erica, what the mom is this? Take it down right now. I'm calling a lawyer. Mom told me to call you, but I'm too angry. Then my parents. Dad, Erica, we need to talk. This isn't like you. Mom, honey, please call us. Madison is very upset. Mom, again. Your father wants to know if you can remove the video. We can discuss everything calmly. But it was the messages from other people that really caught my attention. Jessica, my college roommate. Holy Mamation, Erica. I had no idea. I'm so sorry about missing your birthday. My cousin Mike, just watched your video. Madison really did all that? That's messed up. Even my coworker, Lisa. Girl, you are my new hero. That video is incredible. But the most interesting messages weren't from people I knew personally. They were from Madison's colleagues, clients, and professional network who'd somehow found the video. Someone named Jennifer from TechFlow. Is this really Madison Collins from our company? We need to verify this information. A small business owner from Portland. This explains everything about our contract issues. Thank you for sharing this. Someone else. I work in tech recruiting, and I'm sharing this with my network. This kind of behavior is exactly what's wrong with sales culture. The video was spreading. By noon, it had been viewed over 3,000 times. By evening, over 10,000. Madison's professional reputation was unraveling in real time, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. The calls from my family became more desperate as the day went on. Madison. Erica, please, you've made your point. I'll pay you back for the dinner. Okay, just take down the video. Dad. The whole family is upset about this. Erica, this isn't how we handle disagreements. Mom. Your sister is worried about her job now. Surely that's punishment enough. But here's the thing. It wasn't punishment enough. Not even close. You don't get to spend years treating someone like garbage, steal their birthday celebration, charge thousands of dollars to their credit card without permission, and then ask for mercy when the consequences catch up with you. I didn't respond to any of the family calls that day. Instead, I spent the afternoon monitoring the video's impact and documenting the responses it was generating. Several of Madison's clients had reached out to me directly, asking for more information about the business practices outlined in the video. I connected them with each other and suggested they might want to coordinate their response. A local business journalist had found the video and was asking if I'd be willing to be interviewed about corporate misconduct in the tech industry. Most satisfying of all, someone from TechFlow's HR department had left a voicemail asking if I could provide additional documentation about the allegations in the video. By Monday morning, the story had legs. The business journalist Amanda Chen from the Portland Tribune published an article titled "Local Tech Company Under Investigation." After employee's family exposes alleged fraud. The article didn't mention the birthday party aspect of the story. That wasn't relevant to the business angle, but it covered Madison's professional conduct in detail. TechFlow issued a statement that day, saying they were conducting a thorough investigation into allegations concerning employee conduct and that they take all matters of business integrity seriously. Translation: Madison was screwed. The investigation took 2 weeks. During that time, several of Madison's clients filed formal complaints with TechFlow, and at least 3 were considering legal action for breach of contract and fraudulent misrepresentation. The media attention was more intense than I'd expected. Amanda Chen's initial article had been picked up by several business blogs and industry publications. A local TV station did a segment on corporate accountability that featured clips from my video. Someone had even created a TikTok account that posted highlights from the story, garnering hundreds of thousands of views. What surprised me most was how many people reached out to share similar experiences. I received dozens of emails from viewers who'd had their own family members betray them in various ways, or who'd been victims of similar business practices. Some of them were heartbreaking stories of siblings who'd stolen inheritances, business partners who'd committed fraud, family members who destroyed relationships for personal gain. One message that particularly stuck with me came from a woman named Patricia in Arizona. I watched your video and cried for 2 hours. Not because I felt sorry for your sister, but because I recognized my own story in yours. My brother stole $15,000 from our mother's estate and used it to fund his wedding, then acted like I was the villain when I reported it to the executor. Thank you for showing me that I wasn't crazy for being angry and that family doesn't get a free pass to hurt you. Another came from a small business owner in Seattle. Your sister's company did something similar to mine last year. Different salesperson, same tactics. I thought I was the only one stupid enough to fall for it. Seeing your documentation helped me realize this is a pattern, not just bad luck on my part. I'm considering joining a class action lawsuit. The response made me realize that the video had touched on something much larger than my personal family drama. It had become a symbol for anyone who'd ever been taken advantage of by someone they trusted, anyone who'd been told they were overreacting to legitimate grievances, anyone who had been expected to accept poor treatment in the name of keeping peace. But the attention also brought unexpected challenges. Some of Madison's friends and former colleagues tried to paint me as vindictive and cruel. They argued that professional consequences were too harsh a punishment for what they characterized as family drama and a birthday party disagreement. One of Madison's former coworkers, someone named Brad, even left a voicemail accusing me of destroying an innocent woman's career over petty jealousy. He claimed that Madison was one of the kindest people he knew, and that I was clearly unstable for creating such an elaborate revenge scheme. These criticisms stung, partly because they echoed some of my own doubts. Had I gone too far? Was I really justified in exposing Madison's professional misconduct, or was I just using it as a weapon because I was hurt about the birthday situation? I spent a lot of time during those 2 weeks questioning my actions, wondering if I'd let my anger drive me to cause disproportionate harm. The rational part of my brain kept reminding me that Madison's business practices were genuinely harmful and that her clients deserved to know what had happened to them. But the emotional part of me wondered if I was just a vindictive sister who'd found a clever way to hurt someone who had hurt me. It was actually my conversation with Maria Santos, the bakery owner, that helped resolve these doubts. She'd reached out to me after seeing the article in the Tribune, wanting to thank me for bringing Madison's practices to light. I spent months thinking I was a failure, she told me over the phone. When the marketing didn't work like your sister promised, I thought it was because I didn't understand business well enough or because I wasn't trying hard enough. I was working 16-hour days, trying everything I could think of to make those guarantees come true. She paused, and I could hear her getting emotional. I started having panic attacks about money. I couldn't sleep because I was so worried about making those monthly payments. My daughter asked me why I was always so stressed, and I didn't know how to explain that Mommy had made a business decision that might cost us our home. That conversation crystallized something for me. This wasn't about revenge anymore, if it ever had been. This was about accountability. Madison's actions had real consequences for real people, and those consequences would have continued indefinitely if no one had spoken up. The business fraud wasn't separate from the birthday betrayal. They were both manifestations of the same underlying problem. Madison believed that other people existed to serve her needs, whether those people were small business owners she could exploit for career advancement or a sister whose birthday celebration she could hijack for her own purposes. My family was not speaking to me. Actually, that's not entirely accurate. They were speaking to me, but only to tell me how disappointed they were in my behavior and how I needed to fix the situation I created. The silence from my extended family was perhaps the most telling part of the whole experience. Aunts, uncles, and cousins, who had been regular fixtures in my life, suddenly became unavailable when I called. Family group texts that used to include me carried on without my participation. It was as if I'd been quietly excommunicated from the family network, with Madison positioned as the victim who needed protection and support. My Aunt Susan, who had always been like a second mother to me, finally broke the silence with a phone call. 3 days after Madison was fired. "Erica, honey," she said, her voice carefully controlled, "I think you need to understand how this looks to the rest of the family." "How does it look?" I asked, genuinely curious about their perspective. "It looks like you used very personal family information to destroy your sister's career out of spite. It looks like you couldn't handle not being the center of attention for one night, so you decided to ruin Madison's life." I was quiet for a moment, processing this interpretation of events. "Aunt Susan," I said finally, "did you know that Madison charged almost $4,000 to my credit card without my permission?" "Well, yes, but families help each other with money all the time." "Did you know that she's been systematically defrauding small business owners for months?" "That's between her and her employer, Erica. That's not family business." "And the birthday party? The fact that she deliberately scheduled her celebration for the same night as mine, knowing it would ruin the event I'd been planning for months?" Susan sighed heavily. "Honey, these things happen. Scheduling conflicts are just part of life. Adults handle these situations with grace and compromise." This conversation helped me understand something crucial about my family's worldview. In their minds, Madison's actions were either innocent mistakes or normal family dynamics that I was overreacting to. My response was the real problem. It was disproportionate, vindictive, and inappropriate. They couldn't see, or didn't want to see, the pattern of behavior that the birthday incident represented. To them, it was an isolated event that I'd blown out of proportion rather than the culmination of years of being treated as secondary to Madison's wants and needs. More frustrating still, they seemed to believe that family loyalty should have prevented me from exposing Madison's professional misconduct, even though that misconduct was harming innocent people who had nothing to do with our family drama. "Family comes first" was the refrain I heard over and over during this period. But what they really meant was Madison comes first, and you should have protected her regardless of who else got hurt. The conversation with my cousin Jennifer was particularly painful. We'd been close growing up, more like sisters than cousins, and I'd expected her to at least try to understand my perspective. "I get that you were hurt about the birthday thing," she said during one of our increasingly tense phone calls. "But Erica, you could have just talked to Madison about it like an adult instead of going nuclear." "I tried talking to her," I replied. For weeks before the party, I tried to work out a compromise. She dismissed my concerns every time. "But this video thing, it's so public, so humiliating. Everyone in the family is talking about it. Madison can barely leave her apartment because she's so embarrassed." "What about Maria Santos?" I asked. "The bakery owner who almost lost her business because of Madison's lies. Should I have prioritized Madison's embarrassment over Maria's livelihood?" "That's different," Jennifer said. But she couldn't quite explain how it was different. These conversations were exhausting and demoralizing. I began to understand that I was fighting against a family mythology that had been decades in the making, the story of Madison as the golden child who deserved protection and support, and me as the reliable one who could be counted on to absorb problems without complaining. In that mythology, my video wasn't documentation of harmful behavior that needed to be exposed. It was an act of betrayal against the natural family order, a violation of my assigned role as Madison's supporter and enabler. Dad left increasingly angry voicemails about family loyalty and how I was destroying Madison's life over a simple misunderstanding. Mom sent long text messages about forgiveness and moving forward and how holding grudges was unhealthy. Madison herself had moved past anger into what I can only describe as panic. Her messages became increasingly desperate as the investigation continued and the professional consequences mounted. "Erica, I could lose everything. My job, my reputation, my future. Is this really what you want?" And honestly, yes, it was exactly what I wanted. See, that's what my family never understood. This wasn't about the birthday party. Not really. The birthday party was just the final straw in decades of being treated as less important, less valuable, less worthy of consideration than Madison. This was about every time I'd been asked to sacrifice something so Madison could have what she wanted. Every time my achievements had been overshadowed by her drama. Every time I'd been expected to smile and support her while she treated me like an inconvenience. The birthday party was just the most recent example of a pattern that had been going on my entire life. 2 weeks after the investigation began, Madison was fired. Not just demoted or reprimanded, fired with cause after TechFlow's legal team determined that her actions had potentially exposed the company to significant liability. They'd also decided to terminate several of the problematic contracts she'd negotiated, which meant her former clients were getting the outcomes they'd originally been promised. The news came through the family grapevine. Madison was too devastated to tell me directly, and my parents were too angry to be coherent in their communications. But Amanda Chen from the Tribune called me that afternoon with the update, since she'd been following the story as part of her ongoing coverage of business practices in the local tech industry. "I thought you'd want to know," she said. "TechFlow made their decision this morning. Your sister's employment has been terminated, and the company is implementing new oversight procedures for their sales team." "I see," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. The company also issued a statement thanking the person who brought these issues to their attention for helping them maintain their ethical standards. That's you, in case you're wondering. I was quiet for a moment, processing the information. "How do you feel about this outcome?" Amanda asked. How did I feel? Satisfied? Mostly vindicated. A little sad because despite everything, Madison was still my sister, but mostly satisfied. "I feel like actions have consequences," I said finally, "and sometimes those consequences just take a while to arrive." Amanda laughed. "I think that was the tagline from your video, wasn't it?" "Something like that." The fallout continued for months. Madison struggled to find new employment. Turns out that having your professional misconduct documented in a viral video makes it difficult to land interviews in your industry. She eventually had to relocate to another city and take a significant step backward in her career. My parents continued to blame me for destroying the family and going too far with my revenge. They wanted me to take responsibility for Madison's situation and somehow make amends for the consequences of her own actions. I declined. Extended family members took sides. Some thought I'd been justified in exposing Madison's behavior. Others thought I'd been cruel and vindictive. Holiday gatherings became tense affairs, where people carefully avoided mentioning the video or its aftermath. But here's what surprised me. I discovered that I didn't really care about healing those relationships. For years, I prioritized family harmony above my own well-being. I'd accepted poor treatment and unfair situations because I thought maintaining family unity was more important than standing up for myself. The video changed that. Once I'd drawn that line in the sand, once I decided that my dignity was worth more than my family's approval, I found I couldn't go back to being the compliant, accommodating person I'd been before. My relationship with my parents became distant but civil. We still talked occasionally, but the dynamic had fundamentally shifted. They couldn't expect me to be their automatic yes person anymore because they'd learned that I was willing to fight back when pushed too far. Madison and I didn't speak for almost a year. When we finally did reconnect, it was because she reached out to me. She'd been in therapy, working on understanding the patterns of behavior that had led to her professional downfall and our family crisis. "I need to apologize," she said during our first phone call, "not just for the birthday party, but for everything, for years of treating you like you didn't matter." It was a good apology, specific, accountable, focused on her behavior rather than my reaction to it. Her therapist had clearly been doing good work. "I appreciate that," I told her, "and I'm glad you're getting help." "Can we try to rebuild our relationship?" she asked. "Maybe," I said, "but it's going to be different than it was before." "Different how?" "I'm not going to be your backup plan anymore, Madison. I'm not going to be the person you turn to when you need something fixed or paid for or taken care of. I'm not going to prioritize your needs above my own just because we're sisters." She was quiet for a long moment. "I understand," she said finally. "I think I'm just now realizing how much I took advantage of that. We've been slowly rebuilding our relationship since then, but it's on different terms now. Madison has learned to ask rather than assume, to consider my feelings before making decisions that affect me, to treat me as an equal rather than a convenience. It's not perfect. Decades of family dynamics don't change overnight, but it's healthier than what we had before." My parents have been slower to adapt. They still occasionally ask me to help resolve Madison's problems or accommodate her needs, apparently forgetting that I'm no longer willing to automatically prioritize her well-being above my own. But they've learned that I'll say no now, and that no means no. The video itself has become something of a legend in certain corners of the internet. It gets shared periodically on Reddit and other platforms, usually with titles like Woman Exposes Sister's Corporate Fraud After Birthday Betrayal, or The Most Epic Family Revenge Story Ever. I don't monitor its spread anymore, but occasionally someone recognizes me as the birthday video woman and wants to know if the story is true. It always is. Amanda Chen from the Tribune has kept in touch, and she's used my story as a case study in several articles about workplace ethics and corporate accountability. She says the video was particularly effective because it combined personal betrayal with professional misconduct, making it impossible to dismiss as just family drama. You created a narrative that made Madison's behavior matter to people who didn't know her personally, she explained during one of our follow-up conversations. That's why it had such staying power. As for me, I discovered that standing up for yourself has a compound effect. Once you refuse to accept poor treatment in one relationship, it becomes easier to maintain boundaries in others. My freelance business has grown significantly since the video, partly because I've gotten better at valuing my work appropriately and not accepting clients who try to take advantage of my accommodating nature. I've also been more selective about friendships and dating relationships, prioritizing people who respect my time and energy rather than those who see me as a resource to be used. It turns out that when you stop being everyone's backup plan, you have more time and energy to invest in relationships with people who actually value you. I still celebrate my birthday every year, but now I do it surrounded by people who choose to be there because they genuinely care about me, not because they felt obligated or because there wasn't a better party to attend. Last year, I had a small dinner party at my apartment with 8 close friends. We ate Thai takeout, played board games, and spent the evening laughing about ridiculous things that had happened during the year. It was perfect, intimate, genuine, and completely free of family drama. When I blew out the candles on my homemade chocolate cake, I didn't make a wish. I didn't need to. I already had everything I wanted: self-respect, genuine friendships, and the knowledge that I would never again let anyone treat me as less than I'm worth. Sometimes people ask me if I regret making the video, if I think I went too far in my response to Madison's betrayal. The answer is no. Madison's behavior had consequences, professional, personal, and legal consequences that were entirely proportional to her actions. She committed fraud, she stole from me, and she publicly humiliated me on my birthday. The video simply documented those actions and made them visible to the people who needed to see them. If she'd been a stranger who had defrauded her clients and stolen my money, no one would question whether she deserved the consequences of her behavior. The fact that she's my sister doesn't make her actions less wrong or the consequences less appropriate. Family loyalty is important, but it shouldn't require you to enable someone's harmful behavior or accept being mistreated just because you share DNA. I've learned that real family, the kind worth preserving, is built on mutual respect, consideration, and genuine care for each other's well-being. It's not about unconditional support for destructive behavior or automatic forgiveness for serious wrongdoing. The relationships that survived the video were the ones that were worth keeping. The ones that didn't survive were probably broken long before that October night when I sat alone in a room meant for 60 people and decided I was done being the family doormat. That was 3 years ago now. Madison has rebuilt her career in a different industry. My parents have accepted that our family dynamic has permanently changed, and I've built a life that doesn't revolve around accommodating other people's selfish decisions. Every year on my birthday, I think about that night, the empty dining room, the unauthorized charges, the casual cruelty of Madison's text message. But mostly, I think about what came after, the moment I decided to fight back. The satisfaction of watching the video spread, the feeling of finally being heard after years of being dismissed. It was the best birthday gift I ever gave myself, the gift of self-respect. And unlike most birthday presents, it's one that keeps giving year after year.